I never thought that one of the most awesome gaming experiences I'd have in years would come from a game featuring upskirts. Or no skirts with a thong leotard, depending on your preference. Knowing that Neo, Horizon Zero Dawn, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild came out this year, knowing all that, I'm going to say that Nier Automata is vastly more interesting. In fact, the most interesting game of the year. And if a more interesting game comes out this year, I will be shocked. This game contains action, romance, and profound tragedy. This is Nier Automata. Platinum Games, the makers of Bayonetta and Metal Gear Revengeance, have teamed up with the creator of the original Nier, Gastalt and Nier Replicant, to create a unique experience that defies any single genre. Normally, I'd spoil everything right out of the gate, but in this case I'm going to make an exception and cover a chunk of this without spoilers first. I know, completely insane. So first, the gameplay. While most of the game is a 3D hub-paced, dodge and hack and slash type of gameplay, it will transition into 2D side-scrolling segments, or retro twin-stick shooters from a top-down bullet hell perspective. Oh, what's that? You wanted bullet hell inside your 3D too? Sure. You want to hack and slash as a fighter plane? You can do that too. Do you like open-world RPGs where you can collect 4 of this or 6 of that? It has a little bit of that too, but not really. Do you like min-maxing your character that's built to your playstyle? You can do that as well. Do you like loot progression where you can upgrade to newer and better stuff? You can do that as well. Do you like a crafting system where you can upgrade existing gear? Yeah, you can do that too. This game kinda has a surface level of everything. And normally I would say that would water down the game, but in this case, everything lends itself to the other. It all just fits together well. The game will transition between playstyles in almost a jarring way that the player will actually get accustomed to over time, and only serves to create these, and I'm struggling not to use the word epic because aside from poems, the ocean, and the cosmos, nothing in this world deserves to be called epic. But this game is damn close. These unforgettable, yeah, we'll use that word, experiences. The gameplay alone is one of the reasons this game is so interesting. In many other games that drop the ball, we get these irrational tone shifts that do nothing but to disturb the player. In this game, the tone shifts become expected and enhance the high points, which would have otherwise devolved into white noise had the player not had a break from them. Boss fight to peaceful green field to unforgettable action sequence to another boss fight to another peaceful green field. Normally, I'd call this style of development watered down, broken, or unfitting, but here in Nier Automata, everything complements each other in a way that may not be immediately perceptible, but upon reflection, yeah, that worked together. So moving on to the story. The non-spoiler explanation of the story is that thousands of years ago, aliens attacked, humanity escaped, and now lives on the moon. Aliens brought with them a self-replicating network of machines. It is now 11,000 AD, during the 14th Machine War. Everyone now living on Earth are humanoid androids known as the Resistance. They work with battle androids from space known as Yorha. You play as one of these Yorha androids, Unit 2B. You have an assistant known as 9S who provides support, including giving you helpful hints, acting as a follower during combat, and things of that nature. So in this war of androids versus robots, your goal as a Yorha android is to secure victory for the Resistance androids so that humanity can finally return to Earth. We'll get back to the plot later, but I wanted to touch really quick on the soundtrack. This game has an amazing soundtrack to the extent that if it were sold on vinyl, I'd drop $40 to get it imported tomorrow. I'd put it up there with Chrono Cross as one of the best. The tracks are, for the most part, location-based. So as you step into an amazing situation, an amazing soundtrack will play to complement that. When you go to a peaceful green field, a mysterious soundtrack will play, because you can tell you are in the ruins of human civilization. But the music isn't the only thing that helps establish atmosphere. We have graphics as well. Everyone who knows me knows I play 2D sprite-based games designed in pre-Windows DOS in the late 1980s. So telling me a game looks good or bad based on, graphics, I'm just gonna laugh at you. However, Nier has this pale filter over it during forest areas I found slightly annoying. And in nearly every other area of the game, I found it to be gorgeous. The ruined cities were rendered well, as far as ruined cities go. Unlike Bethesda and Fallout games where the ruins felt like they were in a dead world, Nier has you experience the idea that we've gone so far into the future that nature is now reclaiming the world. One of my criticisms with the game is as it is presented to us right off the bat. It is presented in a way that's saying we've been fighting the machines for thousands of years. So, from that limited piece of knowledge, the city should have been broken down in a couple hundred. I can only conclude that Earth-based androids must have done a ton of rebuilding between the 13th and 14th Machine Wars, but none of that is properly expressed to the player, leaving players to come up with these ideas and assumptions all on their own. But the initial impression was that these freeway overpasses and all these other very telltale signs of the modern world, they obviously came from our time, which quite frankly couldn't have been the case. Now, the game could have gone without 2 specific quests toward the beginning of the game. Collect 4 this or collect 3 that. But that really was the only part of the game that felt like a slog to me. They don't give you fast travel until much later, but even then, experiencing the game, I didn't want to fast travel. I enjoyed running from place to place, killing the packs of robots, looting them, finding treasures and crafting ingredients in the wilds. I don't think I really used fast travel until I became insanely invested in the story toward the end. Another thing I'd like to talk about is how the game deals with player death. First of all, there's a network function where dead players leave behind corpses, somewhat like a mixture of soapstones and bloodstains from Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, you could use a soapstone to leave behind a message for other players. In Dark Souls as well, when you died, you left behind a bloodstain that showed how you died. In this, when you die, you can leave a death message on your corpse. Your corpse will show up in the same position in other people's games, and when you find another player's corpse, you can either loot it or revive it as a temporary NPC-controlled ally. When you loot another player's corpse, you can get a certain amount of healing, money, random chips that the player had equipped when they died. But yes, death is an actual mechanic used in the game. This is similar to how Shadow of Mordor handled it, where NPCs remembered killing you. Well, in this case, you lose 4 of the chips you had equipped at the time, and you'll have to go back to your corpse location to recover them. That's why this game has 3 equipment presets you can set up. So in the event of your death, you can swap to a different preset. Deaths in this game, however, can be mostly avoided once you get a handle on the dodge key and how to quickly use healing items. Healing items are plentiful, and if you enjoy open world exploration as much as I do, you'll quickly find yourself with enough money to buy vast amounts of healing items and never die again. Bullet hell sections of the game are based entirely on 3 types of damage mechanics: beams that must be avoided, dark bullets, and glowing bullets. Glowing bullets must be shot to make them disappear, and dark bullets cannot be shot and must be entirely avoided. Although there are upgrade chips that will eventually allow you to slash through bullets, if that's what you want to do. Upgrade chips have a certain cost, and you have a certain pool to which you can assign these chips, so you're more or less specializing your character to whatever playstyle you want to pick. There is enough of a variety of melee and ranged weapons across the entire game to where you can really use whatever playstyle you want. Now, I mentioned the dodge key before. The way the game handles dodging is obviously you tap it to move rapidly away from where you were. But in this game, there's a mechanic known as a perfect evade, where if you were to hit the dodge key an instant before you were to take damage, your body will distort in a similar way to how items teleport. During this distorted phase, the attack will pass through you. You may split into 4 temporarily and then reform. You may relocate for an instant and avoid the attack entirely, but once the attack is done, you will have taken the hit but not received any damage from it. And it's shown to you in a spectacular, distorted fashion. Once you get a handle on how to perform perfect evades, running away from enemies and overall large-scale dodges don't really need to be done against melee-orientated enemies anymore. Perfect evades become a much-needed thing if you decide to use very hard difficulty. Very hard difficulty obviously isn't recommended for the average player. I played the game on normal first, but very hard is a die-in-one-hit mode, and a lot of player corpses everywhere come from that. At this point, there is no need for healing items because one hit you die. On one hand, your micromanagement becomes a lot easier, and on the other hand, you need to play good. Finally, I'd like to talk about endings in the most non-spoiler way possible. There are 26 endings to the game, one for each letter of the alphabet. 23 of those endings are joke endings you get for doing stupid plot-breaking things that the characters reasonably wouldn't do. The first real ending leads you into the second playthrough, which is a retelling of the exact same events from the first playthrough as another character. Some people may say this is just padding out the content, but I can't disagree more. You gain an entirely new perspective on this character, which I'll explain later in the spoiler section, but not yet. Well, but that covers endings A and B. They end at the same spot. Finally, the third playthrough of the game is actually the sequel to A and B, where the game picks up at the moment A and B left off. It's the second half of the game. It's freaking amazing. It pulls no punches with character development, and it takes everything you knew and flips it on its head. From there are choices that'll get you either ending C or D, and open up a chapter select so you can resume the game at any point. And finally, there is a true ending, which I won't be talking about at all in this video. Either way, I'm done. Buy this game. It's awesome. It could be better toward the beginning, but it just keeps getting better, and that's rare for video games to do. Again, just buy it. Now, time for the spoilers. Did I mention just go buy the game? Well, whatever. So, you start off as Yorha Android Unit 2B, and you play through the game as her. You're given very little in the way of answers, and you have behind you this wuss named 9S. As the player, I hardly even noticed he existed. He's like your generic Skyrim follower in the sense that I perceived he existed. He helped me out in combat a little bit. He may have said something now and again relating to the situation, and he may have made plot-related comments, kind of like Serana did in Skyrim. But other than that, I didn't really know he existed. What I didn't realize was after getting the first ending and entering into 9S's storyline, 2B wasn't as badass as we thought. From the original tutorial mission, from that very beginning point, we found out that 9S saved your ass time and time again during the boss battle. While you were up in a flight unit, he was on the ground with his arm blasted off. He accomplished more during that fight than you did as 2B. Remember those fetch quests I criticized at the beginning of the game? 9S criticizes them too. He says they're pointless. 2B calls him out, says, "Stop complaining." But this is my second time doing them, and I'm agreeing with 9S. I don't want to do this again. And that situation made me agree with 9S in a way. I'm looking at 2B like, this is pointless. I don't want to do this again. And it put me into 2B's state of mind, and that's the real purpose for those two quests, was to do that. Was to be like, you know, have 2B bitching at him like, okay, well, he deserves it, he's a wuss. No, he's not a wuss. These are stupid fetch quests, and he's right. It was all about getting you into his headspace. Now, every now and again, the plot branches out where 2B and 9S get separated. There we see things from completely different perspectives, and the plot diverges with completely different things happening. One of my main complaints playing as 2B was that I didn't feel like we talked to HQ headquarters frequently enough. With 9S, we're in almost constant contact with them, and 9S's helpful suggestions to 2B was actually him passing on HQ's directives. It felt to me, at least, that 9S was actually the main character, was actually the hero of the story, and it turns out, well, if I've sold you on the game, stop watching, go play it, but spoilers intensify. Because it turns out, 9S finds out that there are no humans on the moon. They're all dead. They all died out as a result of white chlorination syndrome. For those of you who don't know, the video game Drakengard 1's, one of the main endings, causes a demon from Drakengard's universe to fall into the quote-unquote real world. Doing so, it caused mesoparticles to spread across the world. Humans began to degrade into salt. This was white chlorination syndrome. This sets up the events of Nier Gastalt and Nier Replicant, where they're trying to save humanity. The future, thousands of years after all of that, is Nier Automata. The Gastalt project failed, and humanity went extinct long before the aliens invaded. By the time the aliens invaded, only androids had persisted on Earth for ages. The aliens died out too, killed by their own machines who achieved sentience, a mind, a will of their own. So countless robots fight on a proxy war on behalf of their creators that no longer exist. But those are almost coincidental spoilers. Those aren't what make the game great. Aside from the aforementioned gameplay being great, the game kicks it into high gear with playthrough C, the third playthrough, where your victory over the final boss has prompted the Yorha Androids to launch an all-out assault and wipe the machines off from the face of the planet. You join the attack squads and everything goes horribly wrong, as you end up witnessing the android base that you've been using for the entire game thus far explode into little tiny pieces, and you see Platinum Games presents Nier Automata as the debris from your base rains down on the Earth. That's the start of the second half of the game. Event after event has the androids succumbing to a virus that is killing them. The character you played as in the first playthrough, 2B, is dying as well. Well, a rogue android, someone who had disconnected herself from the network a long time ago, and was a boss you ended up fighting earlier, her name A2, she ends up giving 2B a peaceful death. However, 9S got there just in time to witness the killing blow. From then on, 9S is set on a course to avenge 2B by killing A2. You spend the rest of the game switching between A2 and 9S as they make their way through the post-crisis world. You get to witness tragic event after tragic event as everything falls apart and the game gets freaking dark. 2A is challenged, and she gets stronger from each challenge, whereas 9S is continually challenged, and he slowly loses his sanity from encounter to encounter. All of it breaks into a climactic battle atop this machine spire, where you enter one huge battle of constant switching between A2 and 9S, between 3D and twin-stick shooter, without pauses or breaks or loading screens, none of that, just constant, ever-shifting combat between characters and game modes, all while playing some of the best video game soundtrack I've heard in a long time. The result, well, you decide. No, literally, you decide the result of that battle, and that dictates which ending you get. 9S is the tragic protagonist. He is driven mad by the loss of loved ones, one of whom you got to play. You got to play as 2B. And because of that, you got invested in 2B. So her loss hits you hard because you were playing as that character for at least 15 hours, if you did side quests and stuff. The other character you play as during this final playthrough is A2, someone who'd given up hope on everything, as evidenced by the first time you fought her in a boss battle. Well, she finally redeems herself in the end. It's a story of her redemption and 9S's fall. But you still get to choose which one of them is victorious. And neither one of those is a good ending. As for the true ending, I'm not going to talk about that here. At the end of the day, Nier is a fast-paced action game that can't be contained within a single genre. It's an experience that couldn't even be properly expressed in a non-interactive medium, because there's a certain level of character development and expectation that is created during the first two playthroughs that is rewarded and expounded upon during the final arc. These kinds of tonal shifts the game undergoes can be jarring at first, but the player is able to adjust to them more readily because of the interactive medium. At the same time, the shifts prevent those exceedingly high points from just becoming same old or background noise. When you've had a peaceful downtime and then you get back into a climactic battle, that climactic battle feels all the sweeter for having taken the time off. In short, I look at Nier Automata as a masterpiece. And as far as and I have to say this again, I had fun playing it, I'd rate this just below The Witcher 3 in terms of my favorite games. If a game comes out this year that is as compelling as Nier Automata was, I would be sincerely shocked. This is having looked at Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn and other games like it. They don't come close. And I didn't even come close to covering all of this game. Get it. Play it. It's awesome. That's all I gotta say on that. By the way, did you know the game's creator, Yoko Taro, wrote a stage play before this called Yorha? The stage play was seen as successful and built up a lot of hype for the game in Japan, when people realized that the character you were playing as would be a Yorha android. Now, when confronted about the battle skirt and high heels, he was quoted as saying he just likes pretty girls. As for Rule 34 of the internet, if it exists, there must be porn of it, was presented with evidence of this lewd art. And it had escalated to the point where there is now a not safe for work subreddit called 2Booty that archives the lewd fan art of 2B. Well, when he was asked to comment on this stuff, he said that it is very difficult to keep track of all this lewd fan art that he's supposed to dislike. So he would like it all gathered up and put into a zip file for easy viewing. He'd like it to be gathered weekly, so that he can easily look at all of the lewd images that were created of his character. Pretty freaking hilarious. And I know this is less of me having a review and just gushing about how much I love it, but I had to make this video after I had such a delight playing it. Either way, thank you all for watching. Check the links on screen for more content, and I will see y'all next time.
Model 210. Operator?
He really did have a crush on her. That's sad.
Oh,
Now
no. So this operator model is...
Affirmative. Operator 210. Volunteer to undergo Type B equipment transition during previous descent. Sent to front lines as Unit 21B. Recorded as missing in action 4 hours later.
No. Two B models? I'm glad I got to see you here. I truly am. 2B! 2B! Don't worry, I'm going to kill you now!